Okay, this is part 2, which I believe is part 22. Looking at Ezekiel 43, 10, 11, and 12. So here, going back to the beginning of verse 11, and if they are ashamed of all they've done. Well, how can they be ashamed of all they've done? They don't know any different yet. Somehow they have to realize, before verse 11 kicks in, they have to realize we've been misled. We've been lied to or led astray. Well, it kind of sets up this going back to the Garden of Eden. Why did Eve, reach out her hand and take that fruit? We're told that she saw that it was a beautiful tree. It was good. It looked good. It looked tov. So there's a certain appearance that the tree, that the etz was tov. Well, wait a minute. The word etz in Ezekiel 37, it says take the stick or the piece of wood, but we also then looked at the derivative word nun ayin vav zadi and thought it meant the inherent obligation, the inherent duty and responsibility. The inherent duty and responsibility as people, Yahuwah's people, is to not eat from that tree. Do not learn the ways and worship Elohim Achrim. So for Kua to reach out and take that fruit because it looked good, the etz looked tov. I could plug that into this and say, if the doctrine seems sound, the doctrine seems reasonable. It's like, hey, there's this song called Your Own Personal Jesus. And I brought this up to somebody the other day. I think it was Depeche Mode that first did it, and then Johnny Cash did it, and then this other group, Broken Peach, did it. But the interesting thing about this song, think about, forget Christianity, forget the sacredness of the Jesus name, and just listen to this concept. Imagine if you could invent a religion having nothing to do with the Bible, nothing to do with the Torah. This is just purely imagination. Imagine inventing a God who's always with you, always loves you, always cares. He's always there. He always hears your prayers. He forgives you already. Now you could fill in the rest of the story if you want. Just invent your own God. He's always with you. He loves you. He died for you. He'll give you eternal life. All you have to do is believe, and you can do whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. You can blah, 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 blah. Whatever you want. He's your own personal God, and you believe it. You have the faith, and it's real. It's valid. It's true. Wow, what a great religion. And we're going to call his name Jesus. Okay. Just make up a name. And that's what the song is about. Now, that song is not against Christianity. It just sounds like it. That song is not against the Torah of Yahweh or anything else. It just sounds like it. We're just saying, what an interesting song. What an interesting concept. Is it true? Well, if it's true for you, there is no truth. What the hell? I mean, what the heck? There's no hell. There's no heaven or hell either. Whatever. It's just something to believe in. Wow, what fun. Invent your own religion where everything works in your favor. Is that what's happened? Well, if it is what's happened, how do we ever correct if there's no bearing of the truth? But see, here it says in verse 11, if they become ashamed, for what? Well, you back up to 10. Hey, Ben Adam. Hey, Mr. Ezekiel. The Ruach of Elohim is calling to him, and it says, Hagad et Bet Israel et Habet. Tell the story to the house of Israel about the being taught, trained, and domesticated. Well, why is it the same word, Yod Kaf Lamed Mem, means both power and capacity to succeed and contain it all, and also ashamed, reproach, failure, loss? That's the story of the covenant. Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. If you listen to my instructions, you get blessed. If you don't, you get this curse. That's the story. And then, so the mem ayin vav nun, ayin vav nun. You look at that word and it's ayin vav nun nun. If you look at ayin nun hey, well, that's the word to make it your obsession, your own personal focus of attention. It's used in Isaiah 58. It's translated fast. Don't eat. It can mean to humble yourself and impoverish yourself, but it also means to sing, and it also means to respond. So I could read mem ayin vav nun if their response, according to their response of listening to see how this all fits. Well, listening to what? Calculate truth. Calculate the arrangement. How? Verse 11 explains Zadi Vav Resh. And it says it twice, both at the beginning of the sentence and then later on, as we just read, Zadi Vav Resh, countenance, expression, form, face, pattern, type, fashion, shape, picture. Well, that's like all the letters of the alphabet. Now, it also says Zadi Vav Resh, like the word Mitzrayim or Egypt is Mem Zadi Resh. This is Zadi Vav Resh. Zadi Resh is a rock. It's a fortress, like a castle or a garrison, a fort in the crags, up in the rocks. A strong. It's either a place of refuge or a place for attack. You could say it's a military. It's also image rock. It's also to be treated as a foe. So what if we could look at each one of these 22 letters as if they were military fortresses or types of military equipment? You know, he called himself Yahuwah Zavot, Zadi Bet, Alef Vav Tav. The word Zadi Bet, Alef is army, or to muster a force. It's translated master of legions. But he goes on to say, so he's saying, in their comprehension, so that they can guard the face, the pattern of each one of these letters, let's say. And the upshot of recognizing this is to do, ayin shin, all the het kuf, all I have commanded. And when he says them, the word is Alef Vav Tav Mem, the last word of verse 11. But Alef Vav Tav can mean the stipulations by oath. It's just translated them meaning the people, or them meaning the commands, or them meaning the letters. So if I choose to read into this verse that all the letters are part of the stipulations of what he said, which are the oath that we swore ourselves into, thank you, our forefathers back at Mount Sinai. And I'm seriously, thank you. I mean, no thanks to them. They spun out, convoluted, distorted, and perverted. But this means that for me to say, did Elohim, did the creator of heaven and earth, give his people a way to get back to the truth? Yes, it's in the study of his words. And that's what this is about. And then verse 12, this, Zion Aleph Tav. Well, Zion Hey means this, but also Zion Aleph Tav. Why two ways of spelling the same word when they're so similar? What's the letter Zion? The seventh letter. The seventh letter is to be set apart as distinctive. Zion Hey is to express. So I can say Zion Hey means to express the essence of the Zion. But what's Aleph Tav? To distinctly express the vow. The Zion, the number 7, Shin Bet Ayin means vow. The vow of Aleph Tav. This. See, the meaning is wrapped up in the spelling of the word. If I could say the significance of the vow, and then it says the word tort again, Tav, Vav, Resh, Tav. Well, that's the Torah. But another way to read that, Tav, Vav, Resh, Tav. So there's a prefix and a suffix of Tav, and then the word Vav, Resh, pronounced or, in the middle. Well, or, Aleph Vav Resh is light. Nun Vav Resh, like mem nun vav resh. Mem is the place. Nun is like this lightning bolt or the action. So the place that light emanates from is a menorah, mem nun vav resh, which might be a flashlight or a street light. They're all type of menorah. Menorah is not just, it has to be that shape that we're familiar with. But Torah is instruction. But the word tor, tav vav resh, where we get the word tour or tire, that which is round, to circlet, it literally means search, examine, spy out, reconnaissance, explore. It also means show the way or appearance, and it's the root of tav vav resh aleph is the word for ox. Hey, like the aleph. This, search, examine, spy out, and show the way, starting with aleph. Again, it looks like these are clues pointing at studying the aleph bet, which no one has ever had for, what, a few thousand years now. Then the next word is habet, the house of Israel. But hey, bet yod also means nonsense. Bet yod means please. Bet yod, in me, with me. Tav, the sign of the covenant. Please, the sign of the covenant, being with me. Yeah, nonsense, exaggeration. Now you're making that up. We're going to go with the doctrines that he already told the Pope and the cardinals and the bishops and the pastors and the professors and the prophets and the priests. Go ahead. The stuff that's led us astray, so we're in captivity all these years? Yeah. Next word is al-rash ha-har. Ayin lamed, remember that means a yoke. It means above or upon or with. Concerning rash ha-har. Rash, head, ha-har, the mountain. But Rosh is also like Bereshit, the first word in the scripture. In the beginning, Genesis, like genetics or to generate, that's why it's called Genesis. That's the Latin English word of starting something off. Rosh means head, summit, foundation, primal, primordial, ancient beginning, first, most important. Ha-har, the mountain. Hey, Resh is mountain, but it's also pregnant. And if I could say that, hey, Resh, if you know what each one of the letters means, what's a Resh? What's the head? It's an exalted man. So ha-har, not just the mountain, but it means the epitome of essence, stature, significance, integrity, the epitome of Reshness. Well, if I go back to al-Rash ha-har, if I could look at Hebrews 5:12, it talks about the first principles of the oracles of Elohim. Yeah, like this stuff. A friend of mine, Stu Pedassol, you look at his, he's the guy that does the stuff on Mountain Air 7, the videos. He just did an article about this. He mentions Hebrews 5:12, Acts 7:38, 1 Peter 9:11, and Romans 3:2. 4 places where the word oracle is used. Also Jeremiah 31:33 that he mentions, that I could say, well, the word oracle is actually masa, mem shin aleph. And Yahuwah said, if I ever hear anybody mention this phrase masa Yahweh again, that's it. He's dead and his family, and don't mention that word. But that's the word translated oracle or word, Jeremiah 23. But here he's saying the concept, the fact of there being this thing called first principles of the oracles of Elohim, by definition, matches the meaning of the phrase al-Rash ha-har. First, most important, epitome of essence, stature, significance, and integrity of the Reshness, the Resh status. Yahusha saying, I'm only doing what I see my Father doing and saying what I hear my Father saying. It's his stuff. And then he says this phrase, Kol Gibalo, which is translated all around, Saviv Kadosh Kodashim. So he says, this is the teaching. This is the way it's translated. Zet Tort Habet Al Rash Hahar Kol Gabalo Saviv Kadosh Kodashim Hine Zat Tort Habet. So pointing this way, pointing that way at what's in the middle. Saviv Kadosh Kodashim. So the question is, This is what the house of Israel is supposed to be told at such a time that they're trying to find the truth. They're trying to get back on track. And he says, show them the face, the shape, the form, the fixed measurement of contents. And if that's regarding this alphabet, or we could say, well, it's regarding the sky, but the stars and the study of the sky, that's a little bit more difficult than even looking at the alphabet, because the alphabet letters are drawn specifically in a certain shape of a face, of a pattern. In the stars in the sky, you've got to connect the dots. And then that seems to be rather arbitrary. If Abraham did that, then at least we have his efforts on record. But the idea, Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kodashim. Now, so then the big effort is, what does this mean? What's a Gabal? Gimel, Bet, Lamed, all around. Look it up in the dictionary. It means twist, to wind, kneaded, or mix. So you take a lump of dough with water and flour, and you're making bread. You knead it. You work it. He's saying to do that. So Gabal doesn't just mean all around. It means work this with an effort. It also means confirmed, appointed, a set time, like, hey, determine the calendar. It means around, set a boundary, restriction, or definition. So when you put a border around something, it holds it in a certain position. It's not over there, it's right here. Some of it might slip out. No, put it back right here. To establish this border, it's to give it definition. So he's telling us to give definition to these first principles of the oracles of Elohim. Saviv, Samik, Bet, Yod, Bet. Well, if I'm looking in the dictionary under Samik, Bet, Yod, the next thing, one of the benefits of the dictionary, your eyes see the other things. Samik, you look at Hey Samik, put another prefix letter in front. Hey, Yod, Mem, Nun, Tav, Shin, Alef. Put the other prefix letters in front, and it'll help the study, right? So Hey Samik, Bet, Resh. Well, Bet Resh means pure and clean. Hey Samik Bet Resh means explanation. Bet Resh Hey, recover, restore, to eat after a funeral. Like Bet Aleph Vav Resh, give an explanation. Well, Aleph Bet Resh is light. Bet Aleph Vav Resh is to somehow provide a substance of light. See, again, it's like, hey, now you're changing the spelling of the words. You start looking at the spelling of words, and you start bumping into all the derivatives and the other words in the dictionary that are next to it, and you start building this whole thing. It's like kneading the dough. Mem Samik Bet, circle, environs, round table. See, the mem is the place, the object of Samik Bet. And if you say Samik Bet, Yod Bet, you just take the bet and you duplicate it, making it the other bet. So it's Samik Bet, Bet. Stick Yods and Vavs in between. Samik Bet, Yod Bet, Samik Bet, Vav Bet. It's all the nature of the study that we've been talking about. It's a round table. It also is banquet. So what do you do at the round table? You eat. It means sitting at, reclining, or lounging. Mem Samik Bet. Mem Samik Bet. Bet is a bearing. So if you have a wheel, or if you have a chainsaw and you have a bearing, you put the chain around it. It's that which wraps around like a capstan or a winch. Cornice, pulley, encircling, staircase. Picture the DNA spiral. It's also cause and effect. It's all Samik Bet Bet. So there's something about, okay, this is it. Tell the house of Israel. Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kodashim. You could boil all these three verses down to saying, that's the upshot of this whole study. Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kodashim. What does that mean? All around the mountaintop will be most holy. Well, the reason I started looking at this verse, it was in 2009. A friend got me a ticket to go with him to Jerusalem at Pesach. And I stood there looking at these walls around the old part of the city and thinking, there's nothing kadosh here. It's history and brutality and oppressions, and whoever built these walls wasn't even the people of Israel. And the only way for anything to be kadosh is to is to somehow eliminate everything here and get it down to bedrock. And even then there's tunnels and all kinds of other stuff going on, and there's nothing kadosh here. Is it talking about all around this mountaintop there in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount? Is that really what this is talking about? That's the way it's translated. And I started pondering this back then, 2009. Bet is a gateway or an entrance. Apple of the eye, the pupil of the eye is bet hey. And as we said before, looking at that word of zipur, the pupil of your eye, your most valuable treasure. Why is my most valuable treasure compromised all of a sudden? All of a sudden this week. What does this mean? That the most valuable, the entrance or the gateway to the most valuable, well, Alef bet yod bet, that's Aviv. That's springtime. That's when you start the calendar. But Alef bet is the word father. It's also youthful, verdure, vigorous, like springtime blasting out from the winter and putting out the greenery. Well, what's Samik bet? Samik fits the Mishkan pattern of being the menorah. It's an engineered structure. And when Yeshua said that there's this parable of putting people in charge of the vineyard, and then the master sent people to get his check on him, see how things were doing, and they just beat him up and sent him away, and then he sent his son, and then they killed his son, thinking that they were going to take over the vineyard. Though being the watchman of the vineyard is like the Samik. If you look at the Mishkan pattern and basically see in Daniel 12, the wicked will do wickedly, with no regard of his instruction, but the ones that are doing his instruction will do what he said. But there's all this stuff lines up with the Samik, the menorah, the beatitude that says being the ones who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they will be filled. Lining up with the day of Yom Teruah. The way I see this Mishkan pattern is all about seeing, hearing, and doing. Shema, Shomer, and Ayin Shin Hey, his instructions. Getting it, doing it, what he said. If that's Saviv, then somehow we've got to study, ponder, meditate what he said, his words, make the correction, get back on track as his people. Well, that's determining what's kadosh. If you could determine what's kadosh, it's getting rid of all the fanciful, imaginary, whatever truth you want to believe in, whatever your doctrine, whatever your culture, whatever you inherited, Elohim Achrim. To be kadosh is the opposite of Elohim Achrim. Kadosh is the absolute pure truth. Bet Resh, Torah is kadosh. And then the word kadoshim, well, the idea, kadosh kodashim, is translated holy of holies, most holy, or it's the name of the place where the Ark of the Covenant was. And in the Ark of the Covenant was the Ten Commandments written on stone by the finger of Elohim, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the manna. So I can look at that and say, if we did what he said, truly, as his people, Samik, that's the gateway or entrance to attempting to be kadosh or regard the kadosh. It becomes kadoshim. It blossoms, I could say, just from looking at because it's simply translated all around the mountaintop will be called most holy. And it's like, yeah, whatever. I don't trust their translation. But for him to say, this is the port, this is the tour, this is the search, this is what you're supposed to be looking for, the kadosh. And what would happen if we did? The word kadosh, just for those who don't know, kuf dalet shin or kuf dalet vav shin, and you stick the vav between the dalet and the shin. If kuf dalet vav shin, it says in the dictionary that it's a saint or a martyr. So one who is kadosh, and from the Akkadian language, shining pure. Kind of like the word nor, kanor. You know, the word for David's harp, Dawid, or Dodi is beloved, or my beloved would be Dodi, and kanor, kaf, nun, vav, resh, is the word for harp, David's harp, but the word kanor, kaf, nun, like, shining, beaming, radiant, kadosh, saintly. That's just the word harp. So the voice of David's harp drove the demonic madness from King Saul, remember? These are all pictures to plug into this. So if I sit there and say, I could read, if I study what he said, because remember, you go back to verse 11, he says, the purpose or the upshot, the benefit, what plays out of seeing, of recognizing, of orchestrating, the takan of the Zor, Zadi Vav Resh Tav, is to do what he said. The Ketkuf, all that he said, Kol Chok Tio, and do the Alef Av Tav them. Why? What's his big deal of having to do these instructions? Because my own personal Jesus said I don't have to do anything, he said. He died on the cross. So I'm absolved of responsibility. He died on the cross so I can eat pork chops. Somebody sent me a book, Jubilees. Just got it the other week. Thank you very much, whoever that was. There was no name associated, but I looked at the first couple chapters here. We're going to look real quick at the first 2-3 chapters of Jubilees. Jubilees 1:9 says, first chapter of Jubilees, Elohim speaking and saying, they will forget all my commandments, all that I command them. That's the Chet Kuf. And they will walk after the Gentiles, that's the Goyim, and after their uncleanness and after their shame, and they will serve their gods. Well, that's status quo present tense. These will prove to them to be offense and tribulation, affliction and snare. Many will perish, be taken captive, and fall into the hands of the enemy. What? He says, look, I'm going to give you commands, and if you keep my commandments, this won't happen. But because you were born into the land of affliction, Mitzrayim, or the land of Mem, Ayin, Vav, Nun, meaning Mem can be the place of it, can mean away from, and Ayin, Vav, Nun can be, that's your iniquity and your sin, but also means it's no longer your concern, your Ayin, Nun, Hey, because his stuff is no longer our concern. And the word for response is also a form of worship, singing in the choir. The choir, you have a lead singer, then the choir response, it's Ayin Nun Hey. Because we were never taught or told to concern ourselves with Yahweh's commandments, because the cross was done away with, or whatever the reason, them stupid Jews, they're going to burn in hell anyway, so you don't want to go back and dredge up their culture. They got them in trouble. If they don't recognize Jesus as the Messiah, they're lost, blind, and ignorant. You do not want to copy their history, their heritage. That's what we're told. But here's the thing. Verse 10 of Jubilees 1:10, because they have forsaken my ordinances. That's the word mishpat. This is only in English. I'm just guessing at the Hebrew words. My commandments, that's the Chet Kuf. My festivals, that's the Moedim. My Sabbaths, there's Shabbat. My Kadosh place. What's a Kadosh place? Or is it my Mem Kadosh, my Makadosh? What does it mean to be Kadosh place, or to be those who are my Kadosh-i? See, just because it's written in English, I now have to take what I know about the Hebrew and figure out what word it probably was. I might be wrong, but at least I'm taking the meanings of the letters, the meanings of the words I know, and plug them in to fit with Jubilees. My tabernacle, hey, that's the word Mishkan, and my name, that's Shemi. If you study the Mishkan pattern, all this stuff fits. You understand what this is, because it's all about what he said. Chapter 1, verse 15. After this, they will turn to me from amongst the Gentiles. Well, that's here and now. still being in the midst of the Gentiles, both situationally, locationally, belief-wise, religious-wise, political-wise, culture-wise, we're still in the midst of the Gentiles. So Jubilees 115 is talking about today. After this, that's the word achar, future, that which comes next, following. So Jubilees 115 probably lines up with 2023, which throws us into then Ezekiel 37. After this, they will turn to me from amongst the Gentiles with all their heart and all their soul and all their mem ayin, mem aleph dalet. They're madly, they're very. And then I will gather them from amongst all the Gentiles, and they will seek me. That's the word drash. But elsewhere, as we said, when he uses the word they will seek me, he's saying, I will allow them to find me, to inquire of me, which is to petition him. Hey, would you please help here? So that I shall be found of them when they seek me with all their heart and soul. What does he want to see? Is it a matter of intensity? Is it a matter of seeking me with all their heart and soul? Me as opposed to who? Some Elohim Akrim of your own invention, of your own truth, of your own personal Jesus. Is your own personal Jesus the same thing as Yahuwah Zavot, the Elohim of Israel, aka otherwise known as El Elyon? That's Aleph Lamed, Ayin Lamed Yod Vav Nun, or El Shaddai, which is Aleph Lamed Shin Dalet Yod. Known in the past to Abraham as either El Elyon, Aleph Lamed, translated God, Elyon, Ayin Lamed Yod Vav. That's Most High. So El Al, Aleph Lamed hyphen Ayin Lamed, name of the Israeli airline, is like, hey, that's like saying, bad English, God Most High. You know, the highest, or El is the power, powerful and high, the elite, the majestic. You know, it's these concepts. But what I'm saying is, verse 1, Jubilees 122, I know they will not be obedient until they confess their own sin and the sin of their fathers. Ha! What word means to confess? It's the word hodu. Hodu doesn't just mean give thanks, but it means thanksgiving. So here we have this week in the United States, the festival of Thanksgiving coming up. That's hodu, as in hodu layua ki tov ki leolam chazdo. It's not just give thanks, praise, reverberating, resounding, acknowledging the truth, hey vav, dalet vav, hodu, but it also means to confess your own sin and the sin of your forefathers, which means we have done badly, we have done errantly, we have done sinfully because we have a hard heart and a stiff neck. Sure, my own bad attitude. Yep, I'm a human being who's corrupt. But I also was born into a culture who had inherited a whole bunch of lies, distortions, convoluted untruths. Well, how do I know that? I only know that if I come back to measure it compared to the truth, the Torah of Yahuwah that he told Moshe to write. Hebrew alphabet. Verse Jubilees 124, they will cleave to me and to all my commandments, and ayin shin hey do all my chet kuf and zadi vav command. Chet kuf chok. Chet vav kuf is a rung on the ladder, so it's kind of like, you know, grabbing hold to cleave to me. Well, hey, that sets up Genesis 2:24. A man should cleave to his wife. What's that word cleave? Well, it means attach, which is dalet bet kuf. Well, dalet bet is bear, B-E-A-R. What's kuf? Kuf is like this bear claw. So if you can picture the bear claw as literally what's written in the word to cleave or cling to. So Yahweh says they will cling to me, but dalet bet, which is bear, also means to whisper or walk softly and just keep following. So the way a bear, I'm guessing the attitude, the nature of a bear is to just follow after like this lumbering force that won't quit. And like a bear claw, grab on and cling. They will chase me down and grab a hold of me and do all my commandments. Why? Why do we have to do the commandments? Gosh darn it. Go back to, let's look at Genesis 3:6, the thing with Eve. Vav Tav Resh Alef, Hey, Alef Shin, Hey, Ha'asha. The woman saw. Resh Alef is something on exhibition, to see, to understand. Kitov, that was good. Ha'etz, the tree, the counsel, the doctrine. La ma Alef Kaf Lamed, for eating. Well, Aleph Kaf Lamed. Wait a minute. Yod Kaf Lamed means he will have the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. Yod, speaking of the third person prefix, Aleph Kaf Lamed, shouldn't that mean I will have the power and the capacity to prevail and contain it all? It's simply translated eat. Mem, Aleph Kaf Lamed, is the word food or meal, that which is for eating, that which is for consuming. But see, the same word for eat is, this has the promise of giving me power and capacity. Why would you turn away? So the nachash, which is also nun chet shin, translated serpent, translated copper or enchantment or shiny, glittery. And then it says viki, that, here's an interesting word, tav aleph vav hey hyphen hey vav aleph. So aleph vav hey, hey vav aleph is the same word, two different directions. And it's translated, hey vav aleph means the same thing, and aleph vav hey is translated to desire or long for. So what the woman saw or realized is, this is everything I've ever wanted. You couldn't get any better than this. Kind of like your own personal Jesus. Hey, look, this is it. This thing in this ayin zadi. But that ayin zadi was exactly what Yahuwah said, do not eat. But it's everything I always wanted. Aleph vav hey, hey vav aleph. In the eyes of Nun, Chet Mem Dalet is light. Her eyes comprehended which she saw as being delightful. But Yahweh said not to touch it, not touch it, not to eat it. Ha'etz, Lamed He Shin Kaf Yod Lamed, unto the wisdom and ability, Shakil, wisdom and ability. So she Tav Kuf Het, the opposite of Het Kuf is Chok, which is commandment and law. Kuf Het is take hold. First Fruits of Zion did a book called Take Hold years ago. I think that went out of print. But the interesting thing is that's the word take hold, Kuf Het, which is very similar to Dalet Bet Kuf, which is to chase down like a bear claw. Cleave. This is take hold of the fruit, and ate and gave to her husband to eat with her. In the interest of time here, now we're going to take this whole concept and say, why did he give us his commandments? And we're going to push it right into Genesis 1, verse 2. And this goes back to what we've been talking about for weeks and months about frequency, resonance, vibration, and your thoughts and your hearts and quantum mechanics of association, quantum entanglement, and where's the truth of all that with essential oils and solfeggio frequencies. And there's a lot of talk about that these days, but I'm saying we're going to look at that with Genesis 1:2, with everything that we've just talked about. Verse 2, Veha'aretz hayata tohu vebohu, vechosek al pnei tehom, veruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. The earth, Veha'aretz hayata, hey yod tav hey, existing as a status, tav hey vav, tohu, vebohu, bet hey vav. So tav hey vav is the word translated formless. Bohu is void, empty, or chaotic, formless and void, meaning there's no structure, there's no shape, there's nothing you can point to. Kind of in the Aleph position, if bet means a noun, an object, cosmos, matter, solid, hey, you can identify it. Tohu vaibohu has to establish the state of Alephness. Vechosek al penei tahom. Chosek, chet shin kaf. Well, chet shin kaf is translated as darkness, but it's also sin, ignorance, illiteracy, something that can't work, that doesn't work, that something which can't function. Why is that darkness? Chosek. It doesn't function. Well, if you have a flashlight with no batteries, it's not going to function. If you have a battery, but it doesn't have the working light bulb, it's not going to function. There's something's wrong. Well, what's wrong is it's formless and void. What's formless and void? Was there atoms? Was there hydrogen and oxygen at Genesis 1, verse 2? No, there couldn't have been, because if you have hydrogen and oxygen, you can join them together and get water. Well, then where'd the water come from? Darkness is on the face of the deep. No, wait a minute. Deep is tehom, tav, he, vav, mem. Well, the word formless is tav, he, vav. So is it accurate that it says that's the word deep, meaning deep water? If there's nothing that's formed with substance, then there's no electrons and protons, which means there's no hydrogen and oxygen, and there's no bonding together to make water. So the word tehom there in the last word of the sentence, hamaya, meaning water, translated water, can't be water if there's no water yet. So what's it telling us? Chosek means nothing can happen. If you're illiterate, you can't read. If you're blind, you can't see. If it's dark, there's no light. Nothing could happen. Nothing could function. Tehom, well, if tehom is the plural, it's got a mem suffix to the word formless. Al panei tahom. Well, if you look in the dictionary, he vav mem means agitated or noisy or roar. But what's this panei? If you look at the word panei in the dictionary, it means face. Peinun Alef Yod is also emptiness. Peinun is the word that means form, kind, variety, or specimen. Well, that's like each one of the different letters. And if there was nothing in existence, like electron and proton, because that's something that you could say this is something, and if it was tohu vebohu, then the only thing that existed as of verse 2, going to John 1:1, would have been the original word. The original word existed, but he hadn't yet caused it to exist until he said Yehi Or, which would be verse 3. Ve'yamer Elohim Yehi Or Vayhi Or, verse 3, but this is verse 2. So if we go on to say there's something about that there's something al panei, ayin lam again is translated with or yoked to, on or above or about or concerning the panei, which is the form or the kind or the variety of the tehom. What is the deep tehom? The only thing that had any form or variety would be the letters of the alphabet at this point. And then it says, Ve'ruach Elohim merechefet. Well, what's the word ruach? Spirit. The Holy Spirit hovered over the waters. Well, what's hover? Merechefet. We'll look at that word in a minute. Upon the face of the mayim. Well, mayim is certainly water, but hey, mem yod mem, the mem yod means who? Which is to say, identify a person, a personality. If you look at the word ruach, it means breathe, blow, to make space, give relief, to widen. If you take a clump and then you separate it all, like put spaces between the dots, hey, that's like a picture of the Big Bang. There's one thing separated out. That's the word ruach. Not that the Big Bang really happened, but it might have happened because that's the word ruach. What's the ruach of Elohim? The Spirit of God. But it means to give space in between the dots. That's like the concept of, this chart that we talked about a while ago. Yikes, it's sticking together. Yeah, wow, boy, that fell apart. Just so you know, better not have this in the sun. It'll get ruined. Wow. Yikes. Anyway, this whole idea of the meta between the letters. What's the concept between the letters? That's a ruach, Elohim, merachefeting. Well, merachefet means to fly, flutter, oscillate, vibrate. The what, see, I could translate the mayim as to give identity to the things that are separated, but it's like the organization of the alphabet letters. And if pene, pe nun, aleph yod means emptiness, which is like tehom, or like the tohu vebohu, then this is what was giving it somethingness, the merachefeting. The word ruach also means make profitable. It also means the examination, the meditation, evil spirit or demon. Hey, how can the word ruach be evil spirit or demon? To be able to identify something. Well, if there's Elohim and he's Echad, then anything less than Elohim or a sub essence of Elohim is betness of Alephhness. So this here is talking about the betness of the Aleph was identifiable because the Ruach merachefeted to give character to each specific, whether it's spiritual, mental, or particular, which is two arrows pointing at something. That's the meaning of the word Ruach. So let's look at the word merachefet. Mem, prefix letter, place, time, object of, or the tool of which, or away from, resh, chet, pei, tav. Tav is the suffix. Pei, tav is something that opens. Chet, pei can mean, in the dictionary, tooth of a key. So if you have a special key that opens up a certain lock, the tooth of a key, and there's typically a number of different teeth, it could just be one, but it also means to do secretly, covered with a bonnet or like a hood, where a hoodie or the bonnet was what the British call the hood of a car is the bonnet of the engine, right? Which is similar to the word Samik Tav Resh, hide the words and seal the book, Samik Tav Resh, Samik Tav Mem, Book of Daniel. Het Pei Vav Tav means innocent, no attachment, artless, naive. Well, that's the same as Tav Mem. To be innocent means you haven't committed any sin, any crime, which means you're keeping the Torah. You're walking in the ways of Torah. It happens to be a synonym with the word spelled hey Samik, or Samik hey, or Samik Vav hey. Hey, that's like Samik bet yod bet. So I'm pulling all these other synonyms and similar spellings and concepts to show you that the way the language is built, the engineered structure of the language, the Samik, to understand the Samik, do what he said, is the gateway or entrance. The other interesting thing of tohu, tav, hey, vav, mem. Well, mem is kind of like the suffix, but what's hey, vav? If you look at tav, hey, taha, instead of tahu, because the vav is the masculine suffix, hey is the feminine suffix, it means meditate, reflect, smell, examine, to be astonished, and repent. Smell what? Well, the word resh, yod, chet, reek, like something reeks in English is the word that has a scent, a foul odor. If it reeks, it's not necessarily a foul odor or a good odor, but the word resh, yod, chet, again, spirit is resh, vav, chet, means odor, scent, or resemblance. So to meditate on the resemblance. Resemblance is what something looks like. Who? The mayim, the water, the deep, the depth of something has no bearing, so it has nothing to wrap around, but he gives it bearing as he separates See, to me, if I was doing detective work, it looks like he's talking about the letters of the alphabet. And somebody could say, yeah, there you are obsessing again about the letters that, yeah, Ayin Nun Hey, make it your business, obsess, concentrate, Tav Hey Hey, meditate, find the scent, the ruach. What did he separate, give distinction and relief to? Because soon as he did this, and then he said, Yehi or wham, everything existed in the cosmos as it now stands. But there's something about this merachefeting, which is a word about translate or vibrating, that was a tooth of a key done secretly, and chet pei. If chet pei is a innocent, the only innocence is in doing what he said. So here's the point. What if he created the universe such that if Israel would do what he said, that's the vibration which synchronizes with the way he set up the vibration of the entire universe? So for us to say, how do we worship him? Do what he said. How do we give him what he wants to see? Do what he said. Keep Shabbat, keep his Moedim, fulfill his commandments. That is the means of matching his vibration. Because the word vibration isn't just vibration, it's secretly, innocently, tooth of a key. And by looking at what he said, by reading his words, by analyzing the letters, it's synchronizing our mind with his ruach, his mind, our heart with his heart, our nephesh with his nephesh. And he said, when you do that with all your heart and all your soul, because he's there to match, then he will jump in and be our Elohim with all his heart and soul, which is what Jubilees went on to talk about. If you could just read the first 3 chapters of Jubilees, there's some value there. You might want to look at that. It seems to me the big question is, if he's our Elohim and we're his people, there should be no torn retina. There should be no heart disease, lung cancer, influenza, rheumatoid arthritis. What the heck is going on with us? Well, we're not synchronized with his vibration, because you study the whole cymatics thing, the Rife machine, you match the right vibration and there should be instantaneous correction of malady, perfect healing. How do we get the perfect healing with him? How do we match his vibration? His vibration looks like it's studying these matters. And so if we all of a sudden got it, then we might take on that attitude of saying, if he gave us a commandment, which if we do it, we'll be healed, we'll be freed from our oppressors, let's do what he said. Now we have a certain enthusiasm about doing what he said. Well, isn't that what the whole thing was about all along? I will put my ruach in you and you will want to do my commands. We will find, is there some command he said to do that we haven't been doing? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's want to do it, because that's the frequency. That's the vibe. If we knew the way this place was built and could actually then do it with proactive interest, with I want to be in sync with that pure tone vibration, not because it's 528 or 741, or not because it's some whatever benefit somebody else can see. Oh, it's a pleasant thought. It's a new age woo-woo. It's astrophysics. It's whatever that stuff is not exactly the same, though it might be coupled with, is not the same thing as let's do it because that's him. That's our Abba Yahweh. And if we do what he said, there's health, there's strength, there's sanity, there's success, and get these monkeys off our back. These overlords of oppressors that have been on us for nearly 3,000 years because we turned away. And we have no other reference of what the truth is other than he said so. We have to study these words. 5 minutes. So if I could say, well, what's this great oath? Their oath. Alef, Vav, Tav, Mem. Oh, each letter is an oath. Yeah, but how do we know we have the right meaning of the letters? How do we know we have the right understanding? So just real quickly, I thought, okay, if I'm going to see how fast I can just boom, 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 boom. If I'm going to say, okay, if every letter is obviously what it is, yeah, but you got different shapes of the letters, you've got this and that. But Yahusha came down here to lock the map. Aleph, sent from heaven. Bet, embryonic into the cosmos. Gimel, voyager, link of communication. Dalet, door, portal of birth. Hey, of a woman. Vav, to be the man. Zion, put to the weapon. Het, in a tomb. Tet, dead, sealed. Yod, by my own doing. That's like its own statement, the first 10 letters. Kaf, as a suffix letter, means your, at your hand, or for you. Lamed, mem, shame, kaf lamed mem, shame, reproach, loss. For you, because of your shame, reproach, and loss. Mem noon, lamed mem noon, according to count number. Mem noon, manna, is the word for count and number. Tally, toll, dosage, value, which is the word for oil. That you guys lost. Mem noon samic. Means mem noon samic literally is the word for formulated, styled, phrased, tested, experienced, skilled, trial, empirical, which is to say you doing it yourself, experiencing the study, which is what this whole thing is. So I could look at mem noon samic and say that's us engaging these very things. He came down to engage this very stuff empirically, not just theoretically. And then I'm saying the first 10 letters could be read in a certain way, then the next group of letters another way. Samic ayin means to attack, as a word spelled in the dictionary, means to attack suddenly, storm, run quickly. Samic ayin pei, to divide into different opinions. Gee, like a whole bunch of different denominations. Noon samic ayin, to remove, to go out on a journey, escape. Miraculous is noon samic samic. Then ayin pei zadi, just looking at the different words in alphabetical order sequence. Tan leather. Well, that's the same as the word ayin bet dalet, to worship. Ayin yod pei, if, or oof would be the word for oof is bird. Ayin yod pei is to dark, gloom, made weary, flutter, winged, flying. So something about this whole thing wearing out, and then all of a sudden, pei zadi, explode and scatter. And then Zadi sprout is a sprout or a blossom. Kuf is this thriving. Resh is an exalting. Sheen, a shining. There's Tav. So if we're supposed to calculate the contents, look at the design. Oh, is he talking about the temple, the bet? Or is he talking about, no, this is where you have either the power and capacity to contain it all and to thrive, or the reproach and the shame of falling apart. It's right there in the letters. I mean, that's just briefly. Then if I was to say, he calls it an oath. I could look at the word mem, resh, chet, petov, merachefet, and say, the secret tooth of a key, innocent, do as instructed, okay? Meditate, examine the scent, reflect, and repent. Give character to each one of the particulars and open what's hidden or hooded. Keep the commandments, do the Torah, do what he said as our oath. So how can I look at each one of the 22 letters as my oath? Aleph, Vav, Tav, Yod, Aleph, Vav, Tav, Mem, their oath. So just real quick, and you can think of this for yourself. Do your own contemplation on this matter. If Aleph, this is just mine, just real quick as we end here. If Aleph is first person singular, then I am. That's my being as a created spirit, soul, nephesh, Adam. I've been given a man. I've been given a body. That's bet. But bet also means with. So he gave me the beingness to choose to be with him. And as Yahushua was praying at Gethsemane, he was praying that we would be echad with him the same way that Yahushua was echad with his Father. So that letter bet meaning with, and Aleph meaning I. If I could read these 22 letters as an oath, a vibration of consciousness, because this is what the Ruach vibrated in the very beginning. These 22 letters, giving them identification and separation, distinction. If I can wrap my mind, my heart, my Mem Aleph Dalet, my Ayin Nun Hey, on what each one of these letters means as my being, he has given me this selfness Aleph in this body of Bet to be with him, Echad, Gimel, tethered by this voice of communication. Dalet, he allowed human beings, atoms, to have this proactive choice of heart. Hey, Hanani, here I am. Adam, where are you? I was ashamed. I had to hide. Here I am. Inherited lies, done foolishly, ignorant, blind, not knowing which end is up. The end I do get, it happens to be the shit end most of the time. What the? Here I am. Vav, connected. I will hear and I will do. Same thing our forefathers said at Mount Sinai. Zion, disconnect. I will not do whatever Yahuwah said not to do. No more pork. No more working on Shabbat. No more disregarding his Moedim. Chet, identity of the kingdom. Yahuwah El-Hi. I am Kadosh LaYahweh. His kingdom, his Chet, his Saviv, his Gabol, his surround is all that there is. Tet. Full basket forever. Amun. Semper Fidelis. The U.S. Marines motto is always faithful. Picture of the Tet. Yod, with all my Mem Aleph Dalet. My, the 10th letter, the suffix of the first other 9 letters is personal. Aleph, Yod. This is my personal being. Kaf. Lines of instruction, as written. Ketub Torah. Lamed, teach and learn. Okay, I will teach and learn what he has written. Mem, pregnant with his seed, his word. Nun, unto the expectation of new life. I am not the one in this mortal frame. I am the Nun Ruach of essence within. I am the Aleph within this bet. Whatever that is. Samik, doing Zadika. The wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the righteous will do righteously. Daniel 12. talked about that, Samek Ayin Pei, because they will listen to his words and do what he said. Ayin, with understanding that ways are reimbursed. Whatever he said, your ways are returned on your own head. So when something bad happens, instead of responding with evil, respond with good, and the goodness you do will come back on your own head. That's the mechanics of his kingdom. Pay, I will speak accordingly, causing to open the Zadi, hope of resurrection as promised, and not just resurrection as unto eternity, but as resurrection as unto the circumstances presently, and whether they're manifest presently. You know, we would pray that Joe Mulrooney got out of the hospital, but no, he died, he deceased. So, well, we expect to see him later. Kuf, the future life. After Zadi, after Pei Zadi, is everything is in the future. It could be realized now, but there's certainly the realization for later. Resh, rule and reign in Emet and Chesed, suited as his Resh people. Shin, El Shaddai, the constant vision of trust in provision and defense. Shad, Shaddai, the purveyor of all benefits, the overwhelming destroyer of all opposition. And Tav, I vow, my oath. Alef Av Tav Mem, orchestrated, choreographed to each one of the 22 letters. And that's to sustain that consciousness, to sustain that attitude, doing what he said to do. Seems like that to me, and all my possible understanding here is to synchronize with the vibration of the merechefeting of his ruach, which gave order to the lack of order, the chosek of tohu vebohu, back there in Bereshit chapter 1, verse 2. Maintaining this attitude, hodula yuaki tov ki leolam chazdo. If you want to take my eyeball, then take it. If you want to give it back, then give it back. If a doctor can help, maybe. I don't think I need a doctor, but if you want to have a doctor do something, then so be it. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a human being. I don't know. But I can do this. And that seems to be the upshot of this whole matter. Why did he tell us to calculate these things in Ezekiel 43? And just to say, one matter that we were talking about in Ezekiel 20, I think it was, where in getting down to verse 38, when he says in verse 37 that he was going to take us into the midbar of the nation, separate us into tribes. Verse 38, one way to read it is Yahuwah saying, I can hardly wait to smash the marauders, the criminals from the land. Take you to the land of Israel. He can hardly wait. Is his attitude that he can hardly wait for these matters to become the reality on the face of the earth? If that's what he's waiting for, and he's going to do this sudden intervention that nobody sees coming, we cannot listen to the threats, the pounding of the chest of the overlord saying what they're going to do to our communications or our finances or our well-being. They pollute the air, the water, the food, the airwaves, the 5G radiation, whatever it might be, that's sticking things in us. For Yahuwah to invade this realm with his promise because we attend to his words, evidence and proven. Look at Jubilees. It talks about the Shabbat. How many times he gave us the Shabbat? He gave only Israel the Shabbat. Israel's the Shabbat. Israel the Shabbat, including the Moedim. If you look at Leviticus 23, it's the one thing they robbed from us and said, do not do it in order to honor Jesus Christ. And it's like, that is just the looks like good doctrine to me. Same reason why Eve reached out and took the fruit of the Ayin Zadi. Well, here we are at the end, so it's just a matter of can we see what's going on? Anyway, help us, Yahweh. We're your people. We've been lied to. We've been led astray. We've been misdirected. But we want to be your people. We want to walk in your ways with all our heart and all our soul. We want to see you be our Elohim with all your heart and all your soul, just like you said. Here we are. Heal us, help us, correct us, and bless us. B'Shem Yahusha. Amen.